Hello people, how's it going today? Today's video is going to be a little bit different because, well, it doesn't have too much structure to it at all, and the editing will probably be a little bit all over the place. I'm just starting mid-game in Battlefield 4 in a tank. Not really any plans. I've been in the server for a little bit before I started recording. I'm doing pretty well. But the topic of today's video is 2042 and all my thoughts on it, because honestly, I haven't really talked about it too much on the channel. It's probably going to be a big thing on the channel, and yet I haven't talked about it at all. That's not entirely true. I've talked about it on streams a few times, but I haven't talked about it like at length at all in video form. So today's video is mostly just designed to talk about 2042 and talk about my thoughts on everything that's been going on, all the information we know so far, and that kind of stuff, because it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense that I've been sitting here not talking about this game that I'm super excited for. I've talked about it like twice on streams and that's it. So, you know, figure I'd talk about it now. So I've just got a few notes that I've written down, and I'm just gonna go through everything I've thought about, and I'll basically take it by ear, and you'll have some stuff to watch in the background while hopefully I don't get completely destroyed. But kicking things off, we're going to talk about 128 players, and this is one of the ones that I'm really excited for, mostly because I've been hoping that they'd add 128 player games since like Battlefield 4 when this game released. I was like, man, they're going to keep upping the ante, they're going to add more and more players, and it's going to be great, and then they didn't for a very long time. But we're finally getting 128 players, and 128 players has me really excited just because the craziness can be amped up to like 11. I think Breakthrough with 128 players is going to be bonkers. I don't even know how that's gonna work, if that's gonna work. I mean, that mode could just be completely unplayable, in all honesty. I don't know how playable that mode will be with 128 players, but I'm definitely super interested to find out how it plays. Oh boy, what the hell is that? That's gonna hit me, whatever it is. Or not. What in the world? I think it's a chopper. I think I'm as good as dead here. If I live this, it'll be a miracle. But 128 players is something I'm excited for. Looks like I'm living. 128 players is something I'm excited for, but on that contrary, I'm just gonna jump around on my notes here. One of the things that kind of worries me, despite the fact that we have 128 players, it looks like they're keeping squads at 4 players. And in this game and Battlefield 1, they upped squads from 4 players to 5 players, and I think that was a lot better, personally, for me, especially when playing with friends, because you can play with more than 4 players. I don't know, I just feel like there's more flexibility with gameplay when you have 5-player squads, and limiting it to 4, I can't really explain to you exactly why I dislike it, but I like 5 a lot more, and I just feel like there's no real reason to go back to 4 players after bringing it up to 5, especially with more players on the map. Like, why would you increase the amount of players on the map, but then re-lower the squad count to 4? It doesn't make sense to me, and I know there are a lot of people I've seen on Reddit posts and general stuff on the internet where people are like, well, if they have all these people, they should up the, oh boy. They should up the player counts and make them a whole lot higher on squads and have like 8-person squads. That's a horrible idea, assuming that they keep the whole squad spawn system the same, because you got to think about, imagine trying to kill an 8-player squad. How do you wipe a squad of 8 players? That's basically impossible. So I don't agree with the make squads massive thing. Oh, that's not good. Back up. I don't agree with the make squads like a whole lot bigger, but I do think that they should be upped back up to 5. Yeah, my run ends here. Yeah, well, I might live, maybe, assuming that tank doesn't kill me. That was a good run in the tank, though. But assuming that they decide to keep squads at 4, I think that'll be a really big hit to my enjoyment, at least. When you have those lower amounts of people when it comes to squad play, and it just sucks when you have to break up the squad. I think that's the thing that sucks. Like, if you're playing with more than 4 people, and then there's that one person, then you're like, well, how do we break this up? Do we have squads of 3 and 2? Or, you know, it's just a mess. So I hope they do 5-player squads. Doesn't look like they're going to, but that's something that I am a little bit disappointed with. Getting back on track with the actual order of things that I had written down here is the sector mechanic for Conquest. For those who don't know, they're basically splitting up conquest flags into basically like a bunch of mini flags inside of flags. So to try to explain it better, if you wanted to, oh wow, I'm surprised I destroyed that. If you wanted to capture the A flag, for example, there would be A1, A2, and A3, and you would need to capture A1, A2, and A3 to actually own the flag. So like if you wanted to have majority control of the map, you would need to own all those sectors to own the flag, otherwise it'd still be contested. I think this is probably the right direction rather than just adding 100 flags, but I am kind of interested to see how spawning will work. Like, will you be able to spawn on A1? I'm assuming you will. So it's basically just having flags still, but they're named differently. But regardless, I think the mechanic itself is fine. I think it makes sense to have that kind of thing in the game with how many people they're going to be running around. And I think it can definitely alleviate confusion because you're going to have so many flags. You're going to be like, yeah, we're going to Z flag, you know, instead of just, all right, let's head to A1. So I don't think it'll really change a whole lot, but I think it's definitely for the best overall. Wow, it's Jet Ram. No, come on. Oh, no. How did that happen? The car was moving at like a mile an hour. God damn it. The next thing I've got on here is AI bots, and this is another one of those controversial changes. I know there are a lot of people that are upset with this, and for the life of me, I can't figure out why people are upset with this. There are so many people that are like, I do not want AIs in my game. I only want real people. And to those people, I say, okay, but tough luck pretty much this time around. I think bots are a good addition to multiplayer games because they do a few things. First of all, they make it so that new players and like worse off players can feel better while playing the game because they don't feel like they're just getting completely stomped all the time, and at least they're getting kills sometimes on bots. That's assuming that they're making the bots worse anyway. We'll talk about the bot difficulty in a second. But assuming the bots are considerably worse than players and AI, or rather... Sorry, I just started sweating for a bit there. I wanted to kill that guy. Didn't work out. Anyways, assuming that the bots are worse than players and you'll be able to dispatch them easily, I think it's a good change. Having a game where you're not good at it and you just keep getting killed over and over again and you have no kills sucks. And so it's really nice when you can just play the game. It's not a huge deal, and you can get some kills, you can do good or you can do poorly, and at the end of the day, you're not super worried about how well you do because you feel like you're contributing even if it's just killing bots. Because you know what? I know there's a lot of people out there that say, oh, I can just support my team and that's all I do and I'm fine with that. And I get that to a degree, but most people want to actually have kills. And when they can't get anything, that sucks. The other thing that's great about bots is that we'll be able to fill servers before like actual amounts of people join. And with 128 players, it's obviously going to take a lot longer to fill lobbies. And so during that time, instead of having to just wait in a queue, or well, I guess it wouldn't really be a queue, but instead of having to sit there and wait, you'll be able to actually play the game a little bit until actual players show up. And even when there are actual players, obviously there's still probably going to be bots running around until all 128 players are in the game, and then it's just mayhem with all players. And so I think it makes sense in that regard as well. And finally, the last reason bots are good is just full-on bot matches when the game completely dies out. Because the game's not going to last forever. Like, the online capabilities of games, like, they die out eventually. And when there's no one else to play without bot support, like Battlefield 4, I love this game. It's a wonderful game. But unfortunately, as it stands, Battlefield 4 will die eventually. Sure, it has a campaign, but it's not very great. And there's no bots for multiplayer. So the game eventually is going to die out, and you're not going to be able to play it anymore. And with bots, you'll still be able to play the game, no biggie. And I don't know, I just think that's a good thing overall. So that's pretty much all I think about on bots themselves. There's that one other note that I said I would talk about, which is the AI learning algorithm. There's like all this overhype about how the AIs are going to be broken, and all the YouTubers are clickbaiting, and they're all like, oh my god, broken bots, aim bots, and all this nonsense. No, I can guarantee you that's not going to happen, and if you believe those people, you're getting clickbaited. Because what's really going to happen is they're going to put some sort of limitation on the bots so that their self-learning nature isn't going to just turn them all into basically robotic aimbots that run around and delete you. The bots are definitely going to be tame, and like I said, they'll probably be worse than players, just because EA wants to keep EA and DICE want to keep people on the game, and having oh wow, that was close. And having bots that just disintegrate everything would not make people want to keep playing. I can tell you that for certain. The next thing I want to talk about is the customization and specialists mechanics. So the first thing I'll talk about is customization as a whole. I think unlocking all of the guns to all of the classes is actually a good change and something I've wanted for a while. I know there's going to be a lot of supporters for locking guns to classes, and I understand that, and I don't have a problem with them having class-locked guns. I just think that it'll be nice to be able to run other classes with all the different sorts of guns, because it can lead to more customization moments and just generally be less of a nuisance sometimes when you're like, man, I really want to be able to play this role, but I don't want to use an SMG. For example, Battlefield 5, a lot of the time I would be like, man, I want to play medic, but I just have no chance in these longer range engagements. And in Battlefield 2042, that won't be a problem, because I'll just be able to be like, all right, well, I want to play medic, but I don't want to use an SMG. Cool, all right, I'll just throw in an assault rifle, be done with it, you know? So I think in that respect, it's probably a lot better, or at least I think it's a lot better. There's going to be a lot of people that disagree, and that's fine. We're allowed to disagree. I just think it's a good change overall, and I'm happy with it. As for the specialists themselves, this is definitely a touchy subject, and I am very, very, very skeptical on this one. The specialists I'm worried about, because at the end of the day, the thing about the specialist mechanic that worries me the most is that we're just completely eliminating classes, and we're trying to turn everyone into a one-man army. And I don't think everyone should be a one-man army. I think people should have to weigh their options and make difficult choices. But with the specialist system, it seems like you don't have to make difficult choices, at least in respect to vehicles. When it comes to vehicles, you don't have to make choices. You can just run a rocket launcher all the time. And of course, I know what people are going to say. Well, if you want to run meds or something, then you can't. You can't run a rocket launcher. You need to run meds instead of it. But the problem is a lot of people just aren't going to run meds. It's just going to be rocket launchers everywhere. And if you've got rocket launchers everywhere, tanks and vehicles and all that are just not going to be able to do anything, because every soldier on the battlefield has a rocket launcher. So that kind of thing is really worrying to me. And the specialist thing, there's some other people that are arguing about clones, and they don't want like a bunch of clones of the same soldier running around. And to those people I say, every Battlefield soldier is a clone. I mean, we've got like 1,500 clones running around in Battlefield 4. So in that respect, I really don't care. I couldn't care less about the clone aspect. It's the gameplay aspect I'm worried about, because I don't want there to be just everyone running a rocket or everyone running an anti-air or something like that. It just worries me a lot, and so I don't want to make any calls until the game actually, like, we have gameplay and people have played it, but I can't say that it's not worrying me. Moving on to skill-based matchmaking and the catch-up mechanics. So skill-based matchmaking is something that ruined Call of Duty. I'm not going to get too far into it, but it pissed me off, and I didn't buy Call of Duty this year because of skill-based matchmaking. I was like, nope, not doing it. And so far, it doesn't look like we're going to have that in 2042, but there are people talking about it, and from the leaks I've seen at least, it looks like the quote-unquote skill-based matchmaking isn't skill-based matchmaking, and it's really just a team auto-balancer, something that should be in the game. In other words, if someone joins into the game and one team needs help, then it will take their stats into consideration and put them on that team. So rather than before the match starts, it sees your stats, it puts you in a game and then looks at your stats. And I think that's something Battlefield really, really needs in order to make sure the games don't just become completely unbalanced and one team doesn't get stomped. So I think that's a good thing. Overall, just inconsistencies in skill level lead to more interesting games, at least in my opinion. And so I don't know. I think that skill-based matchmaking doesn't belong, but a team balancer is definitely required, and it sounds like we're getting one of those, so I'm happy with that. The catch-up mechanic, for those who don't know, in Battlefield 1 and 5, depending on how far down you are, if you're winning or losing, you'll capture objectives either slower or faster. If you're winning, you cap flags slower, and if you're losing, you cap flags faster. And it makes it so there's these moments where all of a sudden the flag will just get instantly capped from behind, and you'll be really confused. You'll be like, how the hell did they cap that flag so fast? We just had that. And so that kind of thing is really, really, really frustrating. when you're playing both of those games, so I'm hoping that they just remove the ketchup mechanic. Oh, wow. That guy, you messed up, buddy. Can I get this guy too? No! Oh, rough. But the ketchup mechanic overall, I hope it goes. Next up is anti-cheat and crossplay, and the anti-cheat needs to be good. If the anti-cheat isn't good, the game is basically dead for me, because Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5 are infested with cheaters. There are cheaters everywhere, and it drives me nuts. You can't get into a game sometimes without cheaters, and it makes me rage quit. There are times where I'll queue into Battlefield 5, and I'll get into a match, and I'll look, and there's some guy just running around with an MMG, mowing down every single person right as they leave spawn, and is going like 300-0. I'm not talking maybe they're cheating. I'm talking absolutely blatant, you're cheating. There's no question about it. So the anti-cheat needs to be good, and on that regard, I want there to be crossplay just because console players will dilute the pool, so hopefully I don't run into cheaters, because I'm so tired of getting killed by cheaters in Battlefield. So if there's not crossplay of some sort to dilute the pool, and the matchmaking, or not the matchmaking, the anti-cheat is non-existent again for like the 5th time, then the game is just gonna be finished. Like it's just gonna be done. And I hope that doesn't happen, because if the anti-cheat is basically end-all be-all. If it's not good, the game will be dead on arrival, and I don't want that. As for the last few things, the vehicle situation is kind of interesting. I want the vehicles to be, well, it's kind of hard to explain. Also, I think this is gonna last more than a game, which was not, I didn't at all intend that, but looks like you're gonna be watching more than one game. So, oh. Damn it. Ah, that sucks. But I think the biggest problem with Battlefield when it comes to vehicles is the spawn screen itself, how people just sit on the spawn screen and wait for vehicles. It's actually surprisingly not been an issue this game. I've gotten vehicles quite a few times and I haven't been camping the screen. But a lot of the time in Battlefield, you need to sit, if you want a vehicle outside of the start of the match, you just need to sit on the spawn screen the entire time. And if you don't do that, you have 0 chance of getting a vehicle. It just won't happen. Unless you get extremely lucky, you're never gonna get a vehicle. Some guy is just going to be sitting on spawn screen and they'll grab it for you every single time. So you have no choice but to fight them for it. So I'm hoping in 2042, with that new vehicle call down system, they'll be making it so that maybe the vehicles you'll have to earn almost, like you have to get a certain amount of points, not like a kill streak, but I mean, it's kind of similar to a kill streak, but not a kill streak. I don't know how to explain it. It's like your points obviously persist across death, kill streaks get you more points, and overall, it's very similar to the Battlefront system, Battlefront 2, where you have to earn points and then you can use those points to get vehicles. Because with the vehicle system right now, I hate that people can just sit on the spawn screen and get the helicopter over and over and over. They don't have to earn it, they don't let anybody else get the helicopters, and it sucks playing. Because if you get on one day and you're like, man, I want to play an attack helicopter, and someone's camping the attack helicopter in that server, you can't use an attack helicopter. It won't happen. You can't do it. And that kind of thing, it's annoying. Obviously, even if they had this situation, damn, well, we lost. But even if they had the situation, it wouldn't make too much of a difference, probably, considering that there's going to be a whole lot more vehicles to choose from, because there's 128 players. So if you wanted to use a chopper, there's only one chopper in here, but there's going to be more on Battlefield 2042 maps. But even still, I feel like people should have to earn their vehicles outside of the beginning of the game. I think it's fine if at the beginning of the game, there's a set amount of vehicles on both sides, and everyone can spawn in them, and then after that, they don't respawn. You have to earn your vehicles and call them in, I suppose. I did damn well that game. I'll continue talking next match. I didn't expect to have to go multiple games. I'll probably stop in the middle of next game, considering that this is going on far longer than I thought it would. All right, we're hopping back in, and something I absolutely glossed over in the previous, well, I guess, game that I meant to talk about and just skipped it on my notes, whoops, was the plus mechanic. And the plus mechanic, for those who don't know, is basically you can kind of customize your gun in the game. I almost said in raid. Too much Tarkov, I suppose. But anyways, the plus mechanic, making it so that you can customize stuff in game, I don't think that's going to change a whole lot. That's another one of the things that people are panicking about, that I would almost guarantee you that basically no one will use the plus mechanic. I think there will be very, very, very niche situations where people use it, and outside of that, you'll never see anyone using it, because people, when they're playing, aren't gonna constantly go through their menu and then just get shot dead instantly and have to go back to, basically back to the spawn screen where they would be doing that kind of thing anyway. So I just can't see there being too many people that will actually make use of the plus mechanic, and I don't think those people that do are going to be making that huge of a gameplay difference. So all in all, plus mechanic, I think they just put it in there because they needed some like new tagline or something, some sort of new gimmick, and that's just what they chose to go with their new gimmick, was the plus mechanic. And I don't know, it doesn't really interest me. I don't think it'll interest too many other people. I doubt we'll see it used much, and that's really all I have to say about it. As for the stuff that I needed to continue talking about, and I got, oh, damn, okay. As for the stuff that I was supposed to continue talking about and I just kind of didn't, was the transport vehicle customization, and honestly, this one's just kind of a wish list thing for me. I don't expect it to happen by any right, because we've really never gotten it, but I want them to make it so that we can customize our transport vehicles, like the Jeeps and all that kind of stuff. And I don't mean camos, I mean like actual weapons on the vehicles themselves, because I think it's just kind of lame that I just messed those guys up. I think it's just kind of lame that you have to have the machine gun and the zoom in this game, for example, on all your transports, or on the transport helicopter, you have to have the minigun and you can't put any grenade launchers or rocket launchers or anything else on it. So I think it'd be really cool if, for example, you had the Osprey and you could take the Osprey and you can customize, wow, I'm bad. You could customize the Osprey, and like to your front gunner seat, you could have any manner of weapons, whether it be explosive machine guns, normal machine guns, anti-vehicle rockets, you know, just any sort of cool extra customization with the transports instead of just the attack helicopters and whatnot. Because, I don't know, it just kind of rubs me the wrong way that the transports feel like they always get the short end of the stick and they never get any customization. It's always like, well, you can put a camo on it. It's like, well, that's great and all, but what if I want to do more than put a camo? It also makes it so that people might actually use the transport vehicles, because as it stands right now, basically no one uses transports. I think the best example is the transport helicopter. In Battlefield 4, 99% of people just use the transport helicopter, they bring it where they want to go, and then they bail out immediately. And I think that's super lame, because the transport helicopter can be really helpful to your team, since teammates can spawn on it, and so you can get around to objectives and stuff all the time. As well as the fact that the miniguns are no joke on that transport helicopter. They can tear stuff up. But because you can't customize it, you can't get ECM jammers or anything on it, so you can't block missiles as easily, since you have to rely on flares, and there's no extra stuff you can get for the pilot. It just makes people dissuaded from actually using it, and they just throw the transport choppers away. And I think if they had actual customization for the transports, more people would actually use them rather than just chuck them after they get to where they want to go. Next thing I've got is Levolution's return and the Tornado. I think Levolution coming back is something that I'm super excited for, because Levolution is like, it's super gimmicky. Obviously, everyone knows it's like a super big gimmick. But stuff like the Siege of Shanghai Tower coming down, even the mudslide on this map, which maybe I'll try to trigger if I get the chance. But even just small stuff like that, I really, really enjoy, and I think they add to the, I guess, the coolness factor of the map, even if they don't affect gameplay all that much. It's just cool to see the tower come down on Shanghai and the mudslide come in and take some people out on Limfini Garden here. You know, just the big stuff where you can lower and, what is that map? I can't for the life of me remember. It's a Dragon's Teeth map. You can lower and higher the dam in order to make there be water or not water. It's kind of cool. I can't for the life of me remember it, but those of you that played Battlefield 4, you know what I'm talking about. My mind's failing me. But anyway, stuff like that, Flood Zone being able to destroy the dam, all those cool Levolution moments that only really happen because of that like huge map event. I think it's cool to have those back, because, I don't know, it felt like something that was missing. It was like an innovation that they added, and I think most people liked it. I like it, and everyone I've talked to likes it, but that's not a great sample size, obviously. But it feels like something they added and then just took out, almost. It's like it should have been a staple and then it was gone. I don't know, just kind of weird. I'm glad it's coming back. As for that Tornado, that thing I'm kind of worried about, Mostly because, wow, I got messed up. But the tornado I'm worried about because I don't know the frequency of how often the tornado... You're not gonna let me talk about the tornado, are you? Slow motorcycle, let me talk about the tornado, Chief. Pretty please. This time for sure, we're talking about the tornado. But the tornado I'm worried about because I don't know the frequency of how often that thing is actually going to show up. And if it shows up all the time, then it's gonna get really annoying. Obviously, it's been confirmed that it won't show up every single time on a map. But even if it doesn't show up every single time on a map, if it shows up consistently on a map, like maybe, let's say, every other match, I think it could get really annoying if it just plows through the middle and is constantly just being a general nuisance and you basically can't do anything about it. I think that general sense of helplessness, especially for air vehicles and such, having that huge no-fly zone, just not being able to do anything. If you drive a tank over there, it'll just be wasted. And overall, I don't know. I'm hoping that it doesn't show up very, very often. I mean, it's fine if it shows up relatively often, but if it shows up very often, then I think it could potentially be a huge problem. And I don't want to get super sick of it right after the game comes out, because I feel like the gimmick will only last about a week, and then after that week, everyone's going to be like, oh, come on, here comes the tornado again, coming to ruin the match flow, and that's going to be a pain. So ideally, it's not super frequent, and when it is, it maybe lasts a little bit and then goes away or something like that. But overall, tornado, kind of worried about it. Hopefully it's not that huge of an issue. It could be, it has the heavy potential to, but I also think it's one of those parameters that if it is a massive issue, it should be easily tweaked so that it's not a massive issue. So I'm not super worried about it, but it's definitely something that's in the back of my mind at all times. And finally, the last thing I've got on my notes here is jets and the flying vehicle complications, or how complicated it is to fly flying vehicles. And this is something that I only put on here after playing a bunch of Battlefield 1 with my brother recently, and playing a decent amount of Battlefield 5. And it's that I feel like they really want to dumb down the flying in each subsequent game, and I don't like it. Frankly, I don't like it. And that's from someone who had no idea how to fly until very recently. Now, I'm quite a competent flyer. I can put up a fight with most of the better players. Obviously, the best pilots are still messing me up, but most of the time on populated servers, I can do better than most of the people on the server because I've practiced and I've put in the time and I've put in the hours to learn how to fly, learn the good areas to go, practice my speed control, all that kind of stuff. So I've gotten a lot better with flying the jets and the helicopters in the game, and I feel like I've earned the gain in kills and just, you know, general well-being of my play that I get from playing in the air vehicles now, since I know what I'm doing and I don't just get instantly shot down right as I take off, or crash them into the wall for that matter. But I feel like in Battlefield 1 especially, they were just like, well, we need to make planes dummy easy to fly. So they just dumbed them down to such a ludicrous degree that planes in Battlefield 1 are like a toddler could fly the Battlefield 1 planes. Anybody can do it. It feels bad if you're, I don't know. I'm sure there are good pilots in Battlefield 1, but even still, like, those good pilots are still going to get taken out every once in a while by some of the ludicrous AA weapons they have in those games, or obviously just other pilots, because the complications of piloting in those games just isn't as strong. It's way too easy to fly, and that just bugs me. Obviously, the flying learning curve shouldn't be impossible, and quite frankly, it isn't. Just a little bit of research, and I was able to start practicing the jets in this game, and I've gotten pretty damn good with them, and I've only been really trying to use them for maybe a couple weeks on and off now. So anybody can do it, you just need to put in the effort, and I think you should have to put in the effort, and if you don't put in any effort, then you should get demolished in these kind of hard-to-fly, fast-flying jets. And so I'm worried that they'll keep the dumbed-down mechanics from 1 and 5, maybe less so 5. Like I said, I haven't played too much 5, so maybe there's a whole lot more complicated stuff in 5. But mostly for the jets, I hope that there's still a learning curve and a challenge in Battlefield 2042 to flying those things, so that it's not just RNG, toss up a coin and hope I have either the right plane for the job, or I catch my opponent off guard, or some other nonsense. And on that note, it's not on my little thing here, but please don't give us any overpowered, no heads up, insta-kill AA weapons. The Fliegerfaust in Battlefield 5 is ridiculous. That thing is so overpowered, it's unbelievable, and that comes from someone that I have no idea how to fly in that game. Absolutely zero. And I can put on a Fliegerfaust and shoot down the best pilots in the game, and they have no chance against me. Absolutely zero. It's actually ridiculous. Whoever had the idea of putting the Fliegerfaust in the game, they're on crack, because that thing is so overpowered. I can't even sum it up in words, quite honestly. It's not fair, and I feel bad for anyone that tries to fly in that game, because trying to deal with that Fliegerfaust, or even just the AA guns, is ridiculous. And on the topic of AA, the AA in Battlefield 1, obviously anybody can shoot down a plane. Just look up at it with an LMG, prone with an LMG and shoot at them. Use that LMG that has the flames to destroy all of their critical parts so they can barely turn. Use the AA rocket gun that was added for some ungodly reason, even though there's no reason for it to be there. There's so many AA options. And so I'm hoping, and I'm assuming that they'll probably do this, that the AA weapons will be just solely restricted to the lock-ons, and, you know, that'll be it. So, you know, your classic Stinger, Igla, that kind of stuff. And I hope that's the case, because at least those you can deal with as a flyer, whereas the no heads up stuff, where it just kind of shows up and kills you, that stuff is ridiculous, and you can't do anything about it. But on that same front, there needs to be counterbalance to the aircraft, and I feel like BF4 doesn't have enough of that. It's almost funny, because obviously outside of the anti-air in Battlefield 4 is ludicrously strong, and kind of rightfully so. But I think the thing that bugs me always in Battlefield 4 is that even if you PLD mark and Javelin an aircraft, a lot of the time it won't die, which having to actually coordinate more than one person to try to hit the aircraft with a laser-guided missile and having them not flare it, and you finally get the hit and it does like 90 damage and then they just park it and they repair it and you're back to square one. That's super frustrating. So I hope, assuming that we get laser guided stuff back, which I see zero reason why we wouldn't, I hope that they make it so that the stronger launchers in the game actually will one-shot stuff like helicopters if they get a hit on a laser guided target, because that whole 90 damage pilot lands and repairs itself is really dumb and makes it incredibly frustrating for an infantry player, because you finally land that laser guided shot and they just repair it back, and well, you accomplish nothing. Congratulations, you've gotten nothing out of it, and the helicopter comes by and insta kills you again. I'm pretty much wrapped up on the things I had on my notes, and even that thing wasn't on my notes. I am kind of interested to see how they'll do ammo in 2042 in respects to the vehicles, because I'm assuming they'll have infinite ammo, unlike Battlefield 5. But even if they do have unlimited ammo, I don't know how long the cooldowns are going to be. I don't know if they'll go back to Battlefield 4. It's just going to be, I guess it's just a waiting game to see what they decide to do about it. But I am still intrigued, and I'll be waiting to see. I can't really think of too much else that I have on the docket, though, and this match is only half over, so frankly, I don't really know what I'm going to be able to do. I'm just gonna sit here and kill people, I suppose, but I've covered everything I have to cover. Maybe I'll think of something. Not really any reason to talk when I don't have to, right? That's what I'm doing right now. I'm filling air. That's what I do on my, or try to do on my live streams, but instead I'm doing it in a video form and it feels awkward. I am using the super meta sweat stuff, so I'm sure there's going to be at least one comment from someone who didn't watch through the entire video and hasn't seen that I commented on it, and they're going to be like, you're using an AEK and a G18, it's fucking sweaty loser, and yep, I'm a sweaty loser because I wanted to turn my brain off and be able to talk, and I'm not going to be able to do that while using an off-meta gun. Well, I probably could, but it'd be a little bit harder, so figured I'd just equip this overpowered nonsense and be done with it. Speaking of that, that gives me something to talk about. Can we talk about just how overpowered the AEK is compared to basically every other gun in Battlefield 4? It's mind-blowing, really. The AEK is nuts. I used to think it was like, you know, better than everything else, but not by that much. And then I started using it more, and it shreds at basically every range. It shreds at close range, it shreds at long range, it shreds at medium range. I don't understand how something like this was left in the game for so long, and they never patched it. Never, not once. It's just, it's better than everything. I don't, it's hard to explain through gameplay, but like, just look at that. I just deleted that guy. He didn't have a chance, and I wasn't really that accurate. I just kind of pressed buttons, and he's dead. I probably could have won that fight if my accuracy was better. I mean, I shouldn't have been able to win that fight, but I probably could have if my accuracy was better, and that's the scary part about the AEK in this game. I did actually think about something for 2042, more stuff to talk about while I was dead on the spawn screen. Also, can you die? There we go. The thing I'm really curious to see is how they're gonna handle all the verticality in the game, since we've seen on Hourglass there's the big skyscrapers obviously, and I think it's Kaleidoscope, there's also a bunch of skyscrapers all surrounding the thing, yep, the map. But what I'm curious to see is how hard or easy it's going to be in order to actually get on top of those, because we all know in Battlefield 4 there's the elevators on Shanghai, and you're never getting up those elevators on Shanghai. Like, it's not happening. If someone wants to stop you from getting on a roof on Shanghai, they're probably going to stop you from getting on that roof on Shanghai. Like, you just, it's effectively impossible. Anyone who's played Battlefield 4 and has played Shanghai knows what I'm talking about. You go up the elevator, some guy drops C4, and you're dead. It just, boom, you're gone immediately. And even if they don't have C4, they're probably going to mow you down with the mounted LMG or just do something and kill you immediately the second you get out of the elevator. So I'm hoping that there's other ways onto the roofs that isn't just the elevators, because I think we've proven from Shanghai that the elevators being the only way onto buildings doesn't work, and people just camp up there the whole round. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of shenanigans that go along with the elevators, and obviously we've seen that there are still elevators, which is fun. There's nothing better than trying to defib some guy in an elevator. But regardless, if they have the only way up being elevators, I'm worried for what? Okay, well, I tried. I hope this guy revives me. Come on, please. Okay, guess not. Anyways, I'm hoping that they add like maybe ropes that you can put on the side or something. Maybe a little bit overkill for the skyscrapers. There'll be more helicopters, and it might be easier to get helicopters, I'm not too sure. But yeah, there's the example of the AEK being overpowered as all shit. But there will be more helicopters, so maybe it'll be easier. And there's like the zip lines in between buildings, but I feel like the zip lines are gonna be no better than the elevators. Like, what's the point of them adding the zip lines? People can just camp the zip lines just as well as they can camp the elevators. So I don't see how that would help at all. It doesn't seem to make sense. It seems almost as if DICE is like, yeah, we've fixed the problem. We added zip lines. But to anyone at DICE, zip lines aren't going to solve the problem. People will just camp the zip lines and the elevators, and with more players around, it's going to be easier than ever to camp on roofs. And yes, you can't capture objectives from the roofs, but people don't care about camping objectives a lot of the time in Battlefield. They're just worried about getting kills and camping with sniper rifles on roofs. And that's what people are going to be able to do in the next game, especially since a lot of the maps seemingly have the roofs. Now that I think about it, you know what, there's another thing that I haven't covered yet that I definitely need to talk about, and that's the server browser and how matchmaking is going to work. And this one makes me sad, because I think I'm like 99%, I'm going to try to knife this guy. That actually worked. I'm 99% sure that the server browser is as good as gone, and that makes me really sad because the server browser is like the greatest thing ever, and they keep trying to get rid of it in every game, and I think they're probably going to succeed in this next one. It feels like the server browser has always been like on its way out, and they just, you know, haven't quite succeeded on getting rid of it yet. And like I said, I think they're probably going to do it here, which is going to hurt a lot. It makes me worry about community servers, because if the anti-cheat is terrible and they have really bad community servers or no community servers at all, then I don't see how we're going to be able to deal with the cheater problem on one hand. And the other hand, I don't know, I just like the server browser. I like being able to just find servers that I enjoy playing on, that have the same kind of community sometimes. And I think it's just a good thing for the game, and I think the game will be worse off without it, and I don't think it will have it, and as such, I think the game will be worse off, and I think that's a shame. But I don't think we're going to see a server browser, and that makes me a little bit sad. A lot of bit sad, really, if you think about it, but I don't know. I hope we get a server browser. I'm like cautiously optimistic, even though I'm almost certain that we won't have it. It's a weird feeling. It's almost like I'm lying to myself. It's like, oh, wow, he had a shotgun. The real reality is that I'm in denial about it. I know there won't be a server browser, but I keep telling myself, there's gonna be a server browser, there's gonna be a server browser. It's the same thing with Crossplay. I think I already talked about this, but Crossplay they haven't talked about at all, and we haven't heard anything about it. So it's pretty much almost guaranteed that we won't get it, but I'm still thinking about it. Also, W. So probably gonna wrap things up on that win. I don't think I have too much else to talk about. If you watched this far, the video is probably pretty long. It's probably very similar to my Burnout Chronicles, but I hope you enjoyed. I played really well in both games, so I topped the board that time and I came second last time, so I'm not bad at this game, I promise. Not as bad as I am at YBA. Anyways, that's gonna wrap things up. So, like I said, hope you enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.